Hey, so today's Tuesday, and just wanted to um, check in and talk about stuff again. But I met with my therapist just for a little bit yesterday, and we had this conversation which just really struck me, and I think it would strike others too. So I'm just gonna kind of go into it a little bit, not in depth, just because it's personal too. But which I'm mostly an open book. I'll be honest. Like, there's not much I wouldn't share with just about anyone that is also personal. But anyways, so we were just kind of talking about my situation, and she said something that really struck me about how, I'm very left-brained, and she's like, you're a problem solver, and your work is in analytics, and you're just very, very left-brained, so you can solve just about anything. So you always appear to be really, functional when you may not be functioning as well as it appears. And that is true. Like, I always appear like everything is okay, even when things are completely not okay. so, so it's like high functioning something, or I don't know. Anyways, she talked about how when you're looking at brain scans, and again, biological psychology was really my keen interest when I got my undergrad in psychology, and I wanted to ultimately go into research, which I did not do, obviously. But the squirrels are, I'm outside in my yard, and the squirrels are like, please feed us. I do have seed now. I did go and buy seed, and for the birds and the squirrels, and I'll refill their food here in a minute. But anyways, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I left the food box open, there might be a squirrel in there. It's like not closed all the way. Anyways, I will check on that here in a second. So my therapist said, when you're looking at brain scans, everything first filters through the right brain and then moves to the left. And this is something that I'm aware of already. And I didn't come to it through school. I didn't come to it through my college courses. I read about that a few years later, after graduating, through a book that was recommended to me from an online group of friends at that time, who I absolutely just adored. These people, they were just so fantastic. I feel really lucky to have been a part of that during that time. It no longer exists. But anyways, there was this man online. I believe he was a man. I'm assuming a lot of the names are probably fake names, because when you're in an online group, you typically kind of want to be anonymous. My name has always been my name, so I'm pretty much not anonymous anywhere. Which probably isn't the smartest thing, but I never figured I was interesting enough to for it to be a problem, and I've been right. It hasn't been a problem. I haven't, I've had some stalkers for my local political stuff, but not otherwise. And that's about what I figured would happen, and that's what's happened. So anyways, this man who went by Joseph Woodhouse recommended this book and just loved it. Said it was such a good read and it's such a beautiful read, and just recommended it over and over again. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and pick up that book. And it's The Master and His Emissary by Iain McGilchrist. And it is my favorite book ever. Well, I have a lot of favorite books, but it's definitely one of my absolute favorite books. I've read it 3 times. And it's a pretty dense book, but it is just so beautifully written, that, like, the metaphors that he uses. And he does go into some technical stuff on the brain, but the way he writes it, I firmly think the layperson can read it. As I am technically a layperson, I don't have a master's or a doctorate or anything. So anyhow, but I have an undergrad, only. But I read this book and it is so good. And so my therapist, when she said everything filters through the right brain before it hits the left, I was able to say, to mention that book, because it reminded me of it, and say it is the master, kind of like the master and his emissary. The master is telling me, Jody, you need to heal. It's forcing me to, because the right brain is truly the master. And even though it's silent, it is by which everything is filtered through. The left brain thinks it's the master, but it is not. And even that, is a little bit metaphoric as well. Like, there is like left brain, right brain, but it's more complicated than that. So, but it's just an easy way to discuss it. So anyhow, I highly recommend that book if you are interested in anything that has to do with the brain and just kind of even culture, like what is happening in our culture, because we are so left brain dominated right now, and Western culture is, and to the detriment of our souls in many ways, because the right brain is really, it's the mind, it's part of the mind-body connection. It's part of understanding the whole and not just the parts. It's like the left brain, it is kind of an inferior perspective on life, but it is needed, it's absolutely part of it. But I think that we often focus too much on analysis and on problem solving, to the detriment on the things that make us whole humans. And I think I've pushed way too far in that direction, primarily just because of the situations that I've been forced to deal with, and having to always problem solve and always try to figure out a way out of different circumstances and what is the best way to go, and trying to plan, and in these really terrible situations. And then also, the work that I've chosen is very analytical, and anytime I take tests, my work had us take these tests to see whether we would be, what type of thinker we are, and I always fall in the analysis role, always, every single time, just well into that role. So I'm, in essence, how I already think, I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I guess because I've made it so dominant, I'm kind of starting to collapse around around this. It's like my right brain is like, Jody, come to the center. Remember yourself. Anyways, and I do feel like this has a lot to do with AI and the culture shift we are seeing even right now, which is so left-brained, that I think my right brain sees something that I don't quite see yet, and it is sounding the alarms, and I feel it in my entire body at this point. And I'm not quite sure I can articulate what that is yet, but just intuitively, I feel that I'm missing seeing something with this, that the silent part of my brain sees. And anyways, my therapist did say that my system is working the way it should work, that it's sounding the alarms for me to change things before it impacts my health, like my physical health, because often people don't listen to their body, or their body doesn't, tell them that they need to stop doing what they're doing, for a while at least. And this is kind of the border between being healthy and then ultimately having whatever this is impact physical health, medical health. So I'm glad that my alarm systems are working, because that's what this is. It is the boundary line between those two things. And it's a relief to know that something within me is functioning and warning me before this actually impacts my health on a much greater level. So I'm happy for that. But I was also so happy to talk about The Master and His Emissary with my therapist for just very briefly, because it is such a good book. And I actually think people, as we move into whatever this segment is, the artificial intelligence, and I know some people are calling it abundant intelligence now. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to call it that. It is artificial intelligence. And I think we truly need a book like that to help us understand ourselves and understand the circumstance and just how crazy this is. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves, to our culture, to our world? And for those that love AI, I'm not saying that it's not a tool that could be advantageous in certain ways, but I do believe it is a dangerous tool if used in the wrong ways. And we're not fully examining any of that before we go headlong into this. Companies are just going headlong into it, with very short-term thinking, because they're so worried about competing globally that the ends justify the means. And no, they don't. They don't justify the means. And also, to what end does this bring? No one has really truly examined that thoroughly enough. I'm very upset by all of this, obviously, and it, I think anybody who isn't has not thought enough about all of this and has not tried to imagine the long-term impacts on society. And this is not the same thing as the Industrial Revolution. It simply is not. We are building an intelligent, lifelike being who will be smarter than us. Machines may be quicker and better at doing different functions than us, but they were never going to take over, right? As far as like making decisions for us. We are building an intelligence that will supersede our own intelligence so much that we will look like all of the other animals that we treat, how we treat them across the world, which be kind to animals, please. Anyways, with the morality that we're building it with, which is the morality of a lot of companies and corporations. I'd love to say that, you know, it's a moral standard, but it's not. It's not. This is not a moral standard. And it's not the moral standard I want to live in. And yeah, like efficiency and productivity, and where nobody cares about anything except the shareholders, and you know, or if it makes workers more productive. Anyways, we are just so dumb. Like, we are just like these dumb, you know, two-legged creatures walking this planet, not knowing what we do. And we think we are just the bee's knees, and we aren't. You know, I mean, we're all right. You know, like, we're pretty cool, but I don't want to sound too cynical. I do think human nature is wonderful in some ways, and I love being here. But I mean, ultimately, we have tons of technology, and we don't understand it. And we don't think about the future in ways that it could impact generations down the line. So much is short-term thinking that we react because of short-term thinking. And I just keep hoping that we're going to move away from that, you know, because we keep having things like the Great Recession, which is short-term thinking. You know, I mean, it was all caused by short-term thinking and profits and anyways, this is the same thing, but this is a technology that will shift everything. And we're dealing with it like we dealt with other, you know, hybrid type of investment vehicles that caused a Great Recession. So we're just pushing it through, you know, as quickly as possible. And I mean, what could happen? You know, how, you know, what bad could happen, you know, when doing that? I I mean, people can move to Argentina, I mean, but they're not going to escape this, please. And Argentina, I mean, what a place to choose. Does that person not read history books? Uh, Goodness. At least it's appropriate. Anyways. Oh. Anyways, a beautiful book, The Master and His Emissary. Thank you, Joseph Woodhouse, wherever you are. He was also an artist, and I used to look at his art. He had a webpage way back when. I don't know if he still does, but just beautiful art. And anyways, sometimes people, they are in our lives very briefly, or you may not even meet them, but they touch your life in a way, or they give you a recommendation which ends up being a gift in your own life. And that was one of those things for me, which I've passed that book along many times, including to people who told me it was too dense and they didn't want to read it. But I don't know, like, if you're not interested in culture and the brain in the same way that I am, I get it. But if you are, it is such a fantastic book. And it's beautifully written. And anyhow, but it's just interesting to me how at this juncture in my own life and culturally, that book may help guide me to health. Because over the next few months, I am going to be focusing on mind-body connection, getting in touch with my right brain again to heal, and to figure out what I'm doing in the future. Because I've gone too far to the left brain, and not working on mind-body. Like, I gave up yoga, and I don't really run as much anymore, and I just kind of dedicated so much of my world to analysis and living in my head that I lost touch with everything else almost. So yeah, anyhow, so I just wanted to share that and give you a nice book that I fully recommend, which is extremely timely right now too. I may actually reread it. I have a couple of other books I want to read first, though. A couple books that was recommended by a friend of mine I had breakfast with on Sunday. She made a really fantastic quiche, and we had coffee, and we talked I was over there for 3 hours. We talked, and I hope I didn't overstay my welcome, but I was having such a good time talking to her that the time kind of flew by. But anyways, she recommended a couple of books that are more soulful, and that is truly what I need right now. It's like medicine for the soul. So I'm going to read those books first, and then I may hit up Ian McGilchrist and read his book again for a fourth time. So anyways, thank you so much. I will try to make another video tomorrow. I appreciate you. Please have a good day. Bye.